Hey, welcome back to Travis RC. If you take a look at our list here, you can see that by bag count, we are officially halfway through this build. If you've been following along, then you know that in the last video, we completed the rear clip and the front clip. Now it's time to work on the steering assembly and to get these clips attached to the chassis plate. Stay tuned. Alright, starting with the steering assembly, we're going to be starting on bag I right here. And I think there's a couple components in here that I absolutely loathe. And there they are, right there. We have more turnbuckles and rod ends. Alright, so these are the 6 components that we need for step 1. So, and being mindful to make sure that the orientation is going to be correct on this. Alright, we're going to start by putting this thing in this thing. And that does slot in there. I don't know the names of these components, so forgive me. And then it looks like this will go like this. And those slot together a certain way as well. Basically, you'll want these 2 holes kind of basically next to each other. And then it looks like we put the Servo saver spring underneath of that. So we'll flip it upside down, we'll put our spring on. And now it wants us to go ahead and take this nut and slide an O-ring into a groove on the bottom of the nut. It may take a little bit of work to do that properly. Now, interestingly, it wants us to put a little bit of thread lock on this nut. So basically, it's going to go down like this, and then you'll obviously compress that spring a certain extent. So we'll go ahead and we will do what it says and put a little thread lock on there. I'm going to use my 17mm wheel wrench and have that assist me in compressing this spring here and trying to get it started. That's going to be a tough one to get started. And the manual says to tighten the nut all the way down and then back it off 2 full turns. And you have really got to put a few revolutions on that to get it to go all the way down. I feel like it's going to be a really tight servo saver, but we're going to do what it says. And what does all the way down mean? About right there. I'm not going to force it as tight as I can get it. So we're here. So now we're going to go 2 full turns. Maybe. Ooh, there's 1 turn. There's 2 turns. Spring's pretty compressed. I mean, it's not all the way. It probably looks like it on the video, but we're going to do what it tells us for now. We're building to kit specs. All right, now for step I2, we will take the bearings here. It looks like we need 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. They're just tiny bearings. And it looks like we have 2 smaller bearings and 2 bigger bearings, as you can see here. So obviously we'll figure out which ones go where. Not there, so it looks like the smaller one is going to go here. And is it bigger on the bottom? Nope. Smaller bearing goes on the bottom of this piece also. Just kidding, it's actually the 4 small bearings that go on the top and bottom of each of these pieces. All right, now we need to attach these 2 together with the Ackerman plate, which is right here. And I want to be very mindful of the orientation the manual shows for this. So it looks like it's going to be like that. And they're almost like little tiny hinge pin sleeves. So those will actually go through the bottom, go through the bearings through the bottom of those pieces. Be careful not to pop your bearing out like I just did. Goes in through the bottom here, like so. And that is what the screw will grab onto, it looks like. So now we need 2 button head screws. This part is going to be quite challenging. I have a nut driver under the plastic sleeve to hold that. I have my screw gun. All right, now the other side. And just like everything that has bearings or spins, this one's definitely loosey-goosey on the right. This one on the left needs a little bit of resistance to move, which I think is fine. We got turnbuckles and rod ends, so that means it's my favorite part of the build. These rod ends that have more of an extreme curvature angle to them are going out to the wheels, onto the Ackerman plates there. All right, we will pop our balls in. This is the most satisfying part, I think, of the build so far, to be totally honest. Now what I found with these is it looks like it's impossible to get them on straight at first, but if you keep going, they do straighten out. I'm just kind of I'm going to kind of put it down at the bottom of the threads just as a baseline. So from the inside of the end to the inside of the other end, it looks like that's supposed to be 30¼ millimeters. Oh, and we are very far away from that. These need to come out a ton. Maybe just one more turn, I hope. And thank God we're done with that. We have our right and we have our left. All right, so it looks like we have bearings that go up here and underneath, and I believe that should be the 4 larger bearings that came in the bag. Yep. Pops in, we got bearings down below. Yep. And then down below, right into the bottom of that nut. Pretty interesting. Very interesting. All right, now we go ahead and we get the links attached to the Ackerman plate, and the Ackerman plate looks like it's going to attach to, if you're looking at it this way, it's going to go on the top holes on each side. And to secure, it looks like we have our screws. So the correct assembly is screw goes through the link, then you need 4 washers, and that goes through the forwardmost hole on the Ackerman plate. That is secured with the 5½ millimeter nut. All right, and the same thing. Screw goes through the link, making sure that the end with the most aggressive angle there goes to the wheel. So screw goes through the link, 4 washers, forwardmost hole in the Ackerman plate. All right, and that is bag I. Our steering rack is complete. Now it's time to make this thing look like a car. All right, here we got bag J. First things first, here on step J1, it wants us to take the front body mount and assemble it onto the top bell crank cover, whatever that is. Now there's, and that's going to be done with a small flathead screw. Now we want to be very careful because there are a few different sizes of flathead screws, and in this case there's only one of them. So if it helps, put them all next to each other to figure out and decipher which is going to be which. All right, and I believe I have identified which one that is. So on our plate here, on the top plate, we're going to put the body mount in, and it looks like the higher angle is going to go towards the front. All right, so it looks like it's going to go on sort of this way. Just be mindful of the manual to make sure you know which way is the correct way that it's going. And this is using a 2 millimeter screw. All right, that's a very simple step J1 complete. All right, now I'm not going to lie, I was really wrapping my brain around exactly which screws are supposed to be used for what, because the manual, it's kind of tricky. And granted, it's probably not. This is just me building a kit for the first time. I wondered if these screws were supposed to be for these 2 middle holes here at the front of the chassis. It figured out it didn't seem like that was the case, but then I also tried to put them in the holes and they don't fit. So we know those aren't the ones. These are actually for the chassis brace. I figured out which ones they are. They're smaller flathead screws. They fit in there perfectly. So now the way that I've got it arranged here is these are for the very front, these are for the middle, and then these go directly behind it. And those are the screws that are going to hold on our front clip. So we'll grab the front clip. Now it looks like we need to take the front bumper off. All right, so we're going to keep the 2½ millimeter speed bit on to do the front and then the back, and then we'll switch over to the 2 millimeter to do the middle. Moment of truth, guys. I'm pretty excited about this here. Make sure our shock standoffs are going the right way and that everything looks like it's good. All right. Take a deep breath with me here. Put these back ones on. Now for the 2 millimeter screws in the middle here. And as always, we're going to hand tighten. All right, and I think we'll put our front bumper back on. There's little slots in the bumper that go into little kind of holes there for the chassis, which is pretty neat. All right, let's take a quick peek at how this looks. The front clip is attached for the very first time. Holy moly. Very exciting stuff. Now, we need to get the chassis brace and the posts on for the bell crank assembly. All right, well, I forgot to hit record, but we got steps J1, J2, J3, and J4 done. So we put on the posts secured through the bottom of the chassis for our steering assembly. We slid the steering assembly over top of that. We made sure everything was moving very nicely. We put the steering assembly plate on top of that, which is secured with 5 screws, and the 2 that go into the steering assembly are thread locked. We put on our front chassis brace as well, and now all we need to do is put our steering links on the spindle carriers, and we have a complete front end. So now that we're recording, and sorry that you missed those steps, J1 through 3, I'll make sure to link my buddy Combustion RC's assembly video as well in case you want to go back and check that out and stick around here, or you can stick around with him, whatever works for you. So we got these 2 long screws, some washers, and a couple nuts, and that is what is going to tie our links to our spindle carrier. So got 1 screw, 1 washer on here, put that through the link, and another washer on the bottom of the link through the screw. That will go into its home. And now we're going to hold on to this, and we're going to turn this on its side a bit. And then we have 1 more washer, and then we have a lock nut underneath. Get that started and go to the other side. All right, now we'll zoom you in here a little bit, and hopefully it'll help so that you can see. All right, so screw, washer through the link, another washer through the screw, through the spindle carrier. Perfect. And now I have 1 more washer. And 1 more nut. All right, 5.5 millimeter nut driver. And then we tighten by hand. Let's see how everything moves now that it's all attached. That all looks good. That moves freely. I think you can feel that servo saver a little bit because when you move, it's not flopping, it's staying right where you leave it. And I think that's normal, hopefully. That is bag J. We have a complete front end on this car minus the shocks. Time to cross that off the board and move to bag K. All right, time for bag K. This is going to be the center and rear assembly. So we are going to be putting on the motor mount, the center diff mount, our drive shaft, and our entire rear clip. All right, and the struggle with these steps is getting everything lined up. But first, let me get thread lock everywhere. All right, 1 more. And we hand tighten. All right, that's our motor mount, and now we need what I believe is going to be the differential mount. And that's using the remaining 2 screws that we just tried to use. These do not get thread locked because now we're going into plastic. And we hand tighten. All right, there's our motor mount and our diff mount. All right, chassis brace going on. Slip it through. Find this here. And we hand tighten. I put this backwards. Stand by. All right, now we're going to put in the diff, the drive shaft, and the cage that basically goes around the diff. So how does this need to go? Okay, so it looks like the diff is basically going to go in like this. That appears to make sense. And how about a drive shaft? So let's slot that in like this. And then you can't see it, but obviously you're going to go into your out drive that's up front. Oh, don't spin it, dummy. There's nothing holding it on there. And we hand tighten. All right, and then we want to spin everything because we want to make sure our diff is nice and stout and not going anywhere, and that looks pretty good to me. All right, so that is step K1 and K2. Now step K3 is to just put together this brace here But it looks like it's going to go something like this. Probably. Alright, so we have that brace done. And I'm going to do what Combustion RC did, and I'm going to put this chassis brace on first, because it's going to make the next step a lot easier. Ugh, this is a struggle trying to get things to balance. And we hand tighten. I'm going to leave it just a tad loose just so I can move it around. That'll be helpful as we put the rear clip on, which, speaking of, why don't we try doing that? So, I'm going to get these two button head screws ready. That is what is going to secure the chassis brace to that rear clip. Alright, so now I'll set the rear clip on here. This is a really big moment in the build. Big moment in the build. Alright, we're going to get this little tiny stub of a drive shaft here into the yoke on the center diff as we painfully, apparently, get the rear clip onto its place. We got the rear clip onto its place, but we didn't get that little drive shaft in the yoke. Oh, aha, aha, ha, ha, ha. Okay, now we can get this brace attached. So let's do that. There's two button head screws, and it's kind of hard to see. All right, now we can put this whole thing upside down because the rear chassis brace is holding onto that, and that will allow us to do this so that we can go ahead and get the screws on without having to worry about balancing things like we've been doing for a while now. All right, so I've just gone ahead and I just wanted to make sure I had the right screws in the right places. So these two that go into the C block, looks like those are going to get thread lock. I'll go ahead and cinch down what I can here to start. All right, then we just got to thread lock these ones. All right, and we have a chassis, a front clip, a rear clip, a drivetrain. Everything's connected, and of course, as we have done throughout the whole build, we make sure everything spins. Oh, you love to see it. You love to see it. Everything is spinning. Everything feels smooth. Everything feels nice. Our steering is all good still. Wow, guys, this is getting close. This is getting close. Man, this is so satisfying. This has been such a fun build so far. We're not done yet. Only 5 bags to go. All right, there we have it. We have a chassis. We have suspension components installed, steering components, our drive line minus our motor, and this has come together really nicely. Everything's been smooth. I haven't had anything bind up, minus a couple small hiccups. For my first kit, I really don't think I could ask for anything better, and I think I've been pretty lucky with this so far, and how well this build has gone has really helped solidify that we made the right choice in what to select as our first kit, our first 8-scale buggy, and I'm gonna have a lot more confidence going into our next kit, and there will be another kit, maybe sooner than you think. More on that later. But yeah, I couldn't be happier so far. What I'm most nervous about is probably coming up next, and that is building the shocks. But once we have the shocks on here and done, and I've heard nothing but good things about their shocks, so as long as you do everything correctly, everything should be great. They should feel awesome. We'll slap those on here, and then we'll officially have a slider chassis, and then once the shocks are on here, then we start working on the electronics and trying to get this thing running under its own power. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in checking out the journey of our first 8-scale car, our first kit, and going racing for the first time ever. I'm really excited for what's to come with this and for the next project that we have in store too. We'll see you in the next one.